Hey everyone, welcome to the Admirals Esports Solo Shuffle Power Rankings at patch 10.1.5. In this video, we're going to break down each specialization into a tier list, all the way from S to D. We'll be looking at factors like damage output, survivability, utility, and overall performance. Through watching this video, we'll help you figure out which specializations are best for your playstyle, and help you climb the ladder. All of this information has been collected through the Admirals Esports AWC and Twitch team, so if you want the opinions of some of the best professionals, look no further. First, we'll start with the melees. Windwalkers are the only S-tier melee class in Solo Shuffle currently. They have left their hit and run playstyle behind and become one of the deadliest brawlers in the game. Thanks to numerous defensive buffs and damage increases across the board, they are now far more durable and can stay in the fight for a prolonged period of time, drastically increasing their potential damage output. While they are still vulnerable to stuns, Windwalker's ability to avoid damage, the new ability of Yulon's Grace, and their abilities hitting exceptionally high on cloth and never targets have earned them an S-tier spot on the caster meta. If you're looking for a strong class to play in Solo Shuffle, Windwalker is a great choice. Moving on to the A tier, we have Unholy Death Knights. They've received buffs to both Death Coil and Clawing Shadows, which have made them a very effective damage dealer against casters. This makes them a good choice for the current meta, which is seeing a lot of boomkins and mages rise to the top. Unfortunately, Unholy Death Knights are still very squishy. Their defenses are weak with long cooldowns, and they rely on self-healing to survive. This means that they can be easily killed if they are not careful, and become a lot worse as the game prolongs due to dampening. Next, we have Subtlety Rogues. Sub-rogues have been hit with various nerfs over the recent weeks, reducing their burst damage. However, despite these nerfs, they are still able to deal huge secret techniques and eviscerates if they set it up correctly. Sub earns a spot in the A tier as they compare very well at most of the meta casters, setting up the pins so their teammates that knock them down. Their defenses are also incredibly strong with short cooldowns, resulting in them being able to escape many near-death situations. Moving on, Fury is still remaining in the A tier as well, and with the recent damage buffs it's been given, it is in the best place it's been in the whole expansion. Finally, the Admirals team have controversially placed Survival Hunter in the A tier. While the skill cap is high, when played to its full potential, the class has incredible throughput, and can avoid enough damage of Feign Death and Pillars to not be an easy kill target. However, on certain maps, Hunters will struggle due to their survivability being so map dependent. Runes of Lordaeran and Blade's Edge weeks are a Survival Hunter's nightmare, as they are unable to utilise their kit to the fullest on these arenas. Now, let's get into the B tier melees, starting with Feral. Feral Druids haven't had many changes to them in the recent patch. Their healing is lackluster, their defenses are meager, and they even got caught in the Boomkin crossfire, halving the effectiveness of high winds. However, it's not all doom and gloom with Ferals, as they are exceptional at killing mages and Death Knights, two of the most played classes currently. Demon Hunters are also in the B tier. Previously, Demon Hunters were performing very well, being one of the highest rated melee on the ladder in the caster meta. However, with the rise of other melees, they have simply been taken over, as they are pretty vulnerable to physical damage, and Windwalkers simply just do their job, but better. Red Paladins have joined the B tier of melee classes in Dragonflight as well. While they received a small 2% damage buff and a multitude of mana cost reductions, this has not been enough to catapult them back to their previous state. Unfortunately, Red Paladins are neither exceptional to casters, nor do they have the damage to compensate for not having a Mortal Strike. This means that they are pretty much outclassed by most other melees. In constructed 3v3, Red Paladins can shine when paired with a warrior. However, in Shuffle, lobbies are far too random for their utility to really shine. Enhancement Shamans, much like the other melee hybrids, are also in the B tier. Their damage profile is simply too gimmicky to be reliable, and without being paired with a Mortal Strike class, their consistent damage build is pretty negligible. As far as defensives go, Burrow and Wall are fairly strong cooldowns. However, relying on self-healing in a bracket where dampening stacks up very quickly, Enhancement Shamans are struggling in the B tier. Our last B tier melee are Arms Warriors. Arms can deal pretty decent damage if given uptime, however they are very susceptible to being kited by strong caster players. And unlike Fury, Arms is very vulnerable to dying at all points of the game due to its weak defenses. Finally are the C tier melee, starting with Frost Death Knight. Although Frost Death Knight can work in constructed 3v3 with coordinated gameplay, it's simply too setup based to work in Solo Shuffle. Pair Frost Death Knight's hit and run playstyle with a class that has the worst ability and defenses in the game, you're essentially playing a sub-rogue with none of the benefits. Joining DKs in the C tier are both Assassination Rogue and Outlaw Rogues. Both these specializations deal average DPS and have very long cooldowns on their defenses. Their damage profile forces them to stay in the fight, but their defensive kit does not allow them to most of the time, resulting with both of them being fairly clunky and very fragile brawlers, similar to pre-buff Windwalker. Next, we asked Lontar for his opinion on the current state of healers in Dragonflight Solo Shuffle. Fortunately, with the most recent patch, everything is viable. Well, maybe not prop paladins. Starting with the S tier, we have Holy Paladins. After the recent patch, paladins became gods for a week before being abruptly hit with a nerf hammer. However, unlike usual Blizzard fashion, Holy Paladins did not get over-nerfed into unviability. Holy Pallies are still S tier due to their fantastic mana, excellent healing, and ability to trade cooldowns like Blessing of Protection and Hand of Sacrifice, allowing them to keep their team offensive through enemy cooldowns. Following Paladins, Preservation Evokers are also sitting comfortably in the S tier. This is because of their insane healing coupled with the ability to carry their team with crowd control and the highest burst from a healer in the game. Preservation Evokers also have strong cooldowns, such as Emerald Communion, working through crowd control, Nullifying Shroud to avoid incoming CC, and the ability to maneuver their teammates out of sticky situations with Rescue. Also in the S tier are Holy Priests, who receive numerous healing and damage buffs in 10.1.5. Similarly to Preservation, Holy Priests have great healing, excellent damage, strong crowd control, and can out-mana almost every other healer. The only problem with Holy Priests is their cooldowns are all healing based, thus they get weaker in dampening compared to other meta classes like Holy Paladin. In the A tier, we have Fistweavers. This is because it does ridiculous damage for a healer spec, heals without having to cast, and in the uncoordinated bracket of Solo Shuffle can be hard to pin down in crowd control chains. The reason Fistweavers are not S tier is that they are very lobby dependent. If they get put into a full castle lobby or go up against a rogue, they can be very vulnerable to crowd controls, swaps, and can even be kited so much that they won't be able to heal. Restoration Shaman also makes an appearance in the A tier with their strong passive healing and disruptive abilities like Wind Shear, Hex, Grounding, and Static Field Totem. Resto Shaman's downfall currently is they are bad at healing targets that need to kite to survive, thus when paired with a Mage, Hunter, or Warlock, it will have a tricky time trying to keep them alive. Moving on to the B tier, we have Restoration Druids leading the charge. Restoration is currently struggling due to it not being great at healing the burst that some classes can put out. Restoration Druid also goes incredibly fast and cannot drink in Solo Shuffle, removing one of the main strengths of the class. However, they can still win games in the right hand through utilizing Cyclone at crucial points in the match. Caster Mistweaver is also on the B tier. This is because it's very easy to crowd control and has to rely on channeling a lot, leaving it open to being interrupted. Caster Mistweaver's heals also aren't incredibly strong and can fall behind very quickly if they play too aggressive. Finally on the C tier we have Disc Priest. Disc has the same issue as Restoration Druid, where it will lose up mana to most other healers. They also just can't pump out the healing that Holy Paladins have, and those buffs to Atonement they keep receiving don't really fit how you currently have to play the game. Finally, we'll finish with the casters, starting with the S tier. This is where the most changes are in the patch. Fire and Frost mages have both received damage buffs along with a redesign of their talent tree, giving the class an additional baseline ability tool with displacement. Thanks to the damage buffs, Fire mages are also not forced to take glass cannon, making them significantly more tanky. As for Frost, they can choose for the instant damage build of Ice Lances with huge glacial spikes, or go for a more caster heavy build of Frost bolts depending on the lobby. Overall, the recent buffs to Fire and Frost mages have made them a more powerful and versatile class. They are now better equipped to deal with melees, and they can still do huge damage from a distance. With the rise of melee in the meta, mages are starting to shine in the shuffle. Joining Frost and Fire mages in the S tier are Boomkins, who despite all the nerfs every week, are still in the S tier. This is due to their crowd control of Cyclone being so strong with its length and unspellable nature that the High Winds nerf does not really do much to reduce its power. As far as the damage nerfs go, they are pretty negligible, as Boomkins can still hit over 100k Star Surges and 200k Full Moons. And if that wasn't enough, Incarnation being on such a short cooldown guarantees the Boomkin to win on the second use of the ability if they set it up right, as the damage can simply be unhealable. Moving on to the A tier, we have Arcane Mage, who also benefited from the Mage rework. Dealing significant damage with Arcane Missiles and Touch of the Magi makes Arcane a formidable opponent in the right hands. However, the design of only having one school of magic can be very punishing, as if you get kicked, you can't escape any damage of your Shimmers, Temporal Shield, Barriers, or Wall. Overall, Arcane has to cast too much and is too punishing to be in the S tier, like Frost and Fire, but it is still very strong. Beast Mastery Hunter is joining Arcane on the A tier. This spec can deal strong sustained damage to cloth and leather targets, which the meta classes are full of. Unfortunately, when facing plate, BM hunters fall off hard as their damage becomes far lower. This coupled with their weak defensives earn them a spot in the A tier. Admirals have come in with another controversial pick, with putting Shadow Priest and Ellie's on the A tier too. This is because both targets are very vulnerable to dispels, and the latter is full of paladins playing Cleanser weak. Both Ellie and Shadow Priest can also be targeted down and tunneled pretty easily by Death Knights and Windwalkers, thus making this class harder to play in the current meta. Although these classes can shine and place into lobbies without many interrupts, these classes take a lot of damage and are not great for beginners. A final class in the A tier are Augmentation Evokers. Augmentation Evoker are currently doing what Devastation set out to achieve, one-shotting people with empowered eruptions and upheavals, crowd-controlling healers with sleeps, and supporting their team with unmatched hybrid support. Augmentation is finding itself in the A tier, as despite all these great attributes, it is still very dependent on being close to its target, and it can die if it is tunneled. Kicking off the B tier are Marksmanship Hunters. Similar to Beast Mastery, Marksman does exceptional damage to cloth and leather classes. However, unlike BM, its abilities are long casts, making it very susceptible to line of sight. Another similarity it has to BM is its physical damage, causing a huge drop-off when facing plate classes. Finally, its defenses are also very weak, and its survival is tied to the map. If there is no pillar or open field for the MM to weave around, the MM will often die very fast. Destro, Affliction, and Demonology are also in the B tier. All three of these specializations suffer from simply taking too much damage to really be effective during a game. With the rise of Windwalkers, Destruction and Affliction Warlocks can easily die, even with the recent buffs to Impish Instincts. Although saying that, they do earn their spot in the B tier, as if they are left alone they can easily carry the game, be it through Demonology's CC chains or Destruction with Affliction's huge damage potential. Finally, on the C tier we have Devastation, sitting as the worst spec in the game. Its spells are short range, its burst is very telegraphed, and its defensives are abysmal. Devastation can work at lower rating when people are unaware of how the class works, but the higher you get, the harder this gimmicky glass cannon becomes to play. The only thing saving this train wreck is a redesign. That's all for this one. Be sure to follow the Admirals Esports webpage and Twitch channel to stay up to date with future tournaments and your favourite players.